What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Soulblaze here, episode 3 of Wine Swirlix. You can already see who it is based on the thumbnail and what you see in front of you on the screen. Welcome back to another episode of me gaslighting you about bad little cup Pokemon and why you should use them. This time we have Elgyem, Little Green Man. Without any further ado, let's get into it, but just make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you like what you see in terms of content. It really helps me grow the channel, and I really appreciate it. So, without any further ado, Elgyem, people, let's get right into it. Elgyem is a pure psychic type, as you can see with the stats on deck and from the move pool selection that I've laid out in front of you. You can probably guess whether or not this is a physical or a special attacker. Spoilers, it's a special attacker. It's really strong and it's quite underrated, so that's why it's on the show today. From the stats you see, it has a lot of 55 and then 185 and then 130. Speed and the speed is not looking that good, so obviously just like Scrub in the last episode, you need to do something about that speed, or you need to plan to go last or something of that sort. But Elgyem does have a couple more tools in its toolkit than Scrub has for supporting itself and its own speed. Just a couple of quick ones that come to mind are Thunder Wave and Agility, for example, or Trick Room. So you got some options to rely on that speed. Also, slow swap out with Teleport, not bad either. We'll get more into the moves, but just let's go over the abilities first. First up, we have Analytic, which boosts the attack power of your moves by 30% if you go last. Analytic always works when the opponent switches in front of you, so that's a pretty good safe surefire way to grab some 2-hit KOs that otherwise would be out of reach. And it also, since Elgyem is so slow, it's guaranteed to go Analytic a lot of the time. Just be careful though, because when you're using it as a Trick Room sweeper or a Trick Room setter, you're going to go first, which means Analytic won't proc, so it's kind of a little bit anti-synergetic with Trick Room, but it's definitely workable and still works on switches in Trick Room, so just keep that in mind. The next ability is Synchronize. It copies status. It's not that good. It's quite inconsistent. And obviously a lot of the mons that want to status you are immune to the status themselves. I'm thinking fire type Will-O-Wisp. I'm thinking grass types using powder moves like Spore and Sleep Powder on you, and stuff like that. So Synchronize, and like ice types freezing you even, which would be the best case scenario, or maybe like a water type using Ice Beam and then you get frozen and then they get freezed. But Synchronize would have been a really good ability if it only put the status on them instead of you, but you still have to tank the effects of the status yourself, so it's a very inconsistent and bad ability in my opinion. It does have Telepathy for doubles. Don't know how strong that is because I don't play doubles, but from what I know, it's decent. It's not going to beat Analytic, but it's still an option if you tend to spam a lot of moves that could hit your teammate. So depending on comp and composition and the battle, of course, but I do think Analytic is the most consistent ability for looking at that speed. Now, let's go over to some moves. I have listed a couple of physical moves that you can bring about in the battle. You can put Rock Tomb if you want to slow something down. Thief if you want to steal an Eviolite, that would be kind of nice, but you do have to run Thief on your slot. Zen Headbutt, put a little asterisk there because I don't think Zen Headbutt ever kind of reaches the damage potential of Psyshock. With Psyshock, you can still use your same strong special attack stat of 85, which is very strong for Little Cup. But you still get to hit on the physical side. The only reason I can see you using Zen Headbutt over Psyshock is if you're going for like Thunder Wave, Zen Headbutt, flinching without Serene Grace. Which is definitely a niche thing you could do if you really relied on it, but you're so slow that even if you get the Thunder Wave off, they still have a chance to be faster than you, some of the really faster ones, so that's something to keep in mind. Steel Wing and Rock Slide are decent coverage moves, and also to mention, Analytic does boost physical moves too, I believe, so if you hit that slow Rock Slide on the switch, it can do massive damage, and same with Steel Wing. It's kind of nice to have one coverage move for Fairy type, because this does not get Terra Blast because it's not in Scarlet and Violet. It can still Terrasilize into other types, but it just doesn't get that coverage, which is a little sad for it, because it was it really enjoyed having the access to hidden power back in the day, which is kind of gone right now. If you ever draft Elgyem in Gen 7, then by all means go ahead and use hidden power, or Gen 6 or Gen 5 even. Go ahead and use hidden power fighting with it if you want. That seems to be the most consistent hidden power, but you can also run like hidden power fire for like stuff like Pharaoh Seed and quad effectiveness and stuff like coverage, but it doesn't have that anymore, so it has to kind of lean on more of its psychic prowess, and also depend a little bit more on teammates to get rid of the answers that would otherwise get in Elgyem's way. Not that it doesn't get coverage though, it does get Dark Pulse and Shadow Ball, Energy Ball, Thunderbolt, Charge Beam to further increase your special attack, and you can also run Meteor Beam Power Herb with this thing. I'm not listed Power Herb because it is just with Meteor Beam, and even then, if they swap into something that resists, you get the analytic boost, which is huge for Meteor Beam, but like you can't, like you would have to charge your next Meteor Beam, right? Even if you get the special attack boost, but maybe that's something you can do. It's a niche option. You increase your own special attack, which is huge, and you also get the analytic boost. You might be able to one-shot something that otherwise could have come in, or even put two-shot with like psychic move next to it. But it's really reliant on its psychic prowess, is my point here. So it does get some good coverage, but really reliant on those psychic moves. It also has a really good portfolio in terms of status moves. As I said earlier, with supporting its own speed through either Agility, Thunder Wave, or Trick Room, it also has a bunch of other stuff it can do. I've seen Destiny Bond. Actually, I've seen Destiny Bond in combination with Agility, so it became really fast, and then it, once it did some damage, it sacrificed its own life at low HP for the value of something greater than itself. So Destiny Bond is never something that you can take lightly, because suddenly your 14-point high tier that you had in mind of dominating the matchup and winning versus 5 mon, suddenly that drops to out of the blue skies and heavens, Destiny Bond Elgyem. So just be careful about that. Like, that can happen. So just keep that in mind. It also gets screens, so it can set screens for its team, which is why I've listed Lyclay. If you run screens on this thing and Lyclay is allowed, go ahead. You can even do one screen. You don't have to do both. You can even do screens without Lyclay too. There's just so many options you can do here. You can go for setup sweeping with Calm Mind or Nasty Plot. You can do Calm Mind and Nasty Plot. You can do just Calm Mind, just Nasty Plot. You can do one or both with Recover. You can do Magic Coat if you're predicting a lot of hazards or stuff like that. You can do you have Recover to keep yourself healthy, which is really solid for psychic types, especially when it has a little bit more bulk to it. This with Eviolite and Recover can actually tank some hits that you wouldn't think it could tank, and that just becomes really good for it. And especially it has several ways you can EV it too. The defense, if you put like 2 bumps in it, you can have 14, and the same goes for special defense. You can have like a bumped up defense stat, modest max special attack, and then run like Calm Mind and get special defense boost, for example. We'll get back into sets later. I'm just listing some, surface level things you can do with the moves that we were talking about here. You can also do Recycle. Be sure to check your rule set for your Little Cup Draft League, because some leagues, even nowadays, it's a huge controversy with Scarlet and Violet removing Berry Juice from the game. Some leagues still allow you to run Berry Juice, so I would look into your rule set. Am I allowed to put Berry Juice on stuff? If so, you can save your Eviolite slots for other Pokemon. Run Berry Juice Recycle on this instead of Recover. If you run Eviolite, you should run Recover, because you can't recycle Eviolites like that. So I would highly suggest that if you run, if Berry Juice is allowed, you can run Berry Juice with this a lot more often, although Eviolite is its best item. Shocker, Eviolite is the best item for a Little Cup Pokemon, like what's new, but still, it is worth considering. Also, this can Terra Fairy to resist knockoff, which is pretty nice. There are some other Terra options you can do as well, but in my opinion, Psychic followed by Fairy are the 2 most consistent Terra types for this Pokemon. Just because of the damage output you can get from Psychic types if you have the strong ability to remove Darks. and or you can just resist dark and keep spamming other stuff to try and get rid of the dark types yourself through like coverage moves that doesn't hit dark for super effective, like Energy Ball or Thunderbolt. Maybe they have a secondary typing that you can expose or something like that. So yeah, and then last but not least, it has teleport we talked about. I have put a little asterisk next to barrier just because some leagues might allow it, some leagues might not. I do believe it's a cut move, so I don't think it can be used anymore aside from some leagues that do allow cut moves like that. So check with your local rule set if that's allowed for you. Yeah. It's just barrier is a really nice way of boosting your own defense and can easily fit onto a crit me not set. But cosmic power is also not a bad option for boosting defense, so keep that in mind. Skill swap, you can also trade in your analytic, or you can run a worse ability and use skill swap on purpose to get a better one. You can definitely do that. So there's just a lot of options. You can basically combine a bunch of these moves in a bunch of different ways, and it probably will have a good effect. It's like its moveset is really glue, and its stat pool is just to help further induce that. Now, Eviolite is the best item. Life Orb is for more sweeping sets, but this kind of relies on its bulk to sweep, which is why Eviolite is so good on it. If you think you can pull it off with Life Orb, you'll definitely get more mileage out of the damage that way. You can also run just choice specs with like Teleport, for example, and then just rely on your analytics. So just three attacking moves, Teleport, and then choice specs. Or you can even do 2 attacking moves, Trick. I didn't get to fit Trick on here, but it also gets Trick. So you can trick choice specs onto something and take its Eviolite, for example, which would be huge, and then you can still teleport out of it. That's huge. That's a huge set you can do. You can run Colbur and Assault Vest for this when your Eviolite slots have been used otherwhere on your team. So you only get 2 Eviolites because of the LC Natdex draft restriction. But if you choose to put Eviolite on this, it will thrive with it. If you don't choose it, like you're never really, Elgyem never really messes you up or punishes you for using Eviolite or not on it. It's just a matter of where do you value it the most, kind of. But it never, like, Elgyem doesn't become a bad Pokemon without Eviolite. It just becomes more niche, and you have to handle it a little bit more carefully. But it's definitely still completely usable and has a lot going for it. It is also worth mentioning that Elgyem, although as strong as it might just be considered a little cheaper and slightly different Pokemon than Solosis in a bad way. So it's kind of like just a cheaper Solosis, because Solosis is usually around the 10-9 point range, and Elgyem goes for everywhere between like 8 to 6 usually. So you might see some leagues that have Solosis, and you might want to put, like, Solosis does a lot of what Elgyem wants to do better, but at the cost of something. So it's like, it doesn't have the bulk that Elgyem does. So if you're looking for more of a bulky sweeper, you go Elgyem. If you're looking for more of an offensive sweeper with more ability reliant, because Solosis is considered to have better abilities in Regen and Magic Guard and stuff like that, you can go for Solosis. So Elgyem is kind of just like a cheaper version of Solosis, which is why I want to talk about it, because it doesn't get to shine in a spotlight as much that way. Because I do think Elgyem does have quite a couple things about it that is unique that Solosis cannot do. So here I've listed some sets for you to use. We have the standard. Top left is probably one of the more consistent ones you'll find. Eviolite Analytic. I've put the defenses so that you get the most out of your Eviolite. A little bit in speed, just because it's what it is. You're not really gonna make a difference without speeding that. You might have to see on matchup if it's like a Slowpoke that you don't want to outspeed to get Analytic. You can definitely just take away the speed and just not use that remaining 36. You can definitely do that. IVs are 0 attack on all of these, because we don't want to get hit by a stronger possible foul play when we don't run physical moves. If you run physical moves, then for sure put the IVs back, unless you're really scared of foul play, then take it away again. So you can see every one of these has like a lot of options within them. You have the Screen Setter, Double Screen Psychic, you can run Recovery, you can run Thunderwave, you can run Destiny Bond, and that's not just on that slot. You can take one of the screens away for T-Wave or D-Bond. You can run other moves versus like on this. You can run without Light Clay and do like Oran Berry / Berry Juice Recycle, if that's allowed and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of different variations. So just think of it more as like, instead of just surefire truths with this Pokemon, just think of it more like options that you have for like, it's like this has a lot for different matchups, which is very good. And it's kind of like a Psychic type syndrome that I call it, because a lot of the Psychic types in this format has one of the best move pools in the game. Like Psychic as a typing has one of the best move pool spreads ever. So it's kind of like as a result of that. But Elgyem thrives because of that and actually becomes a better Pokemon because of it. Yeah, so you can have a Crit Me Not set as well. You could definitely do Barrier instead of like Cosmic Power there as well if you want to, if it's allowed. The weaknesses of Elgyem though is it's slow, so it relies on maybe having Trick Room up, or you know, it relies on people switching versus it to trigger its analytic. Maybe being a little scared of it, giving it a turn to get going. Maybe a little momentum from teammates or stuff like that. It wants Eviolite to perform optimally, so 9 out of 10 times you really want to put Eviolite on this, I can assume. But that's not always the case, especially with Little Cup Draft. You want your high tiers to have Eviolites for a reason, right? And that's not always possible. So you can run 4 attacks Assault Vest, you can run Cobra Berry for knockoff, so you still have a bunch of options. But it is like Eviolite being its best item is kind of a little bit of a weakness in the fact that it is a little bit exploitable with being weak to knockoff is like the main thing I'm getting at here. It's weak to knockoff, so unless you use this as your Terra Captain and you Terra to not be weak to knockoff and remove that weakness, Eviolite on a Psychic type that's just a fighting type or any knockoff user looks for that juicy hit any day. Also, with Hidden Powers being gone, the coverage is not the best on this thing, but it does have very clear teams it can sweep and do massive damage and wall break and utterly destroy, and it has teams it can do null, nada, or it's very reduced, like it's screens and it's T-Wave and it's D-Bond, trade its life for something better and just hope, you know? So Elgyem is very much a Pokemon where either it's a catastrophe and it just crushes everything that you set in front of it, or it just hopes to do something. It's anywhere in between. So obviously the Crit Me Not set, you want to reduce, like Dark types is this thing's biggest enemy, and you want to get rid of Dark types. But if you have that coverage and like a strong Fairy type, maybe a Spritzy, or maybe you have very strong fighter, maybe you got an insane fighter early, maybe you got like a Scraggy, or maybe you got like maybe you got it's a Quad Resist Dark, maybe you got like a Farfetch'd Galar, maybe you got like a, you know, Pancham, or maybe Timber or something like that. And Timber can also, if this sets Trick Room and dies, Timber can come in and kind of go ham too. So definitely something to consider to put on your team. If you want a slow Psychic type destroyer, then definitely look into Elgyem, people. It's really, it doesn't get talked about enough. I've seen it do work on teams like Joey Pokeaim's random Little Cup team back in Gen 6. I've seen it done work in here and there in drafts, so definitely consider scooping up Elgyem for your team today. The final rating for Elgyem here on Wine Swirlix is a C tier. Now, C tier is nothing fancy, it's nothing high tier, it's nothing like that, but it is, I think it's actually, it has a little bit of a case of being a diamond in the rough, okay? You should definitely consider scooping Elgyem, especially if you like its moveset, its playstyle. It's definitely, like, people don't expect this damage. 85 special attack and analytic just nukes if it gets to hit the right targets. So consider scooping Elgyem today. This is going to be it for the episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been your boy Soulblaze, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next episode of Wine Swirlix or whatever else I choose to make. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and comment down below who you want me to see me cover next on Wine Swirlix. Thank you guys so much. Peace.